Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're the hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every day, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can view all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues that affect you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
All right, here we go. Good evening, everyone. Let's go ahead and call to order the January 13th, 2025 Resource Conservation Commission meeting. First item on the agenda is Bill, do you mind being timekeeper?
I can do that.
Okay, great, thank you. Item number 2 on the agenda, approval of the minutes, the draft minutes from November 11, 2024. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll move approval.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a second. Open for discussion.
Any comments?
Okay, I'm just checking. Diane and Kim won't be here today, so I'm just checking through Diane's comments. I didn't think she had anything on the meeting minutes, so I don't see any. She submitted to me. Neither had Kim, has any. All right, all in favor of approving the draft minutes from November 11, 2024, say aye.
Aye.
All those approved?
Aye.
All those say no?
I abstain as I was not present.
Okay. So there's,
So there's only 3 of us then, right? You, me, and Andy.
yeah.
Is that enough? What do we got 7 on the commission.
Right, I don't, yeah, I guess we might have to bring that back to the,
Postpone the approval of the minutes.
I think so.
Yeah, we need a quorum on that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I cannot vote for it.
Oh, you didn't
for not
review the
being
minutes?
present. Well, I wasn't here, so
But he can review the minutes and still vote, right?
Well, I mean, he's not gonna know if they're accurate with.
I'll
If he
stay
has-
with, I'll stay with my abstention.
He's abstaining, so
Okay.
I'll move that we push the approval of these minutes to our next meeting.
Okay. Second. Any discussion on it? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? None opposed? Okay, draft meeting minutes from November 11, 2024 will be brought up at the February meeting. Okay, looks like there's no one here for public attendance for non-agenda items. So let's move on to agenda item number 4, new business. The police facility sustainability upgrades discussion. We have on the line with us representatives from FGM Architects. So Brian, I assume you'll take the lead on this?
Absolutely.
Okay,
All right. And we have, we'll be as efficient as we can, but we have what, approximately 30 minutes or less? Or?
yeah, about 45 minutes.
Okay. All right. Well, great. Well, I'm happy to be back with you all again. And joining me from the design team, we have Stacy, Jason, and Marcos on the call as well, all from Ring and Do Chateau, our engineers. So if we want to get into any deeper specific energy modeling related questions, system questions, they are here to help answer those as well. So I have a bunch of files that I can share throughout this conversation and discussion, but just to summarize the goals at the end of this, as you probably recall from the last time we met, We have just finished the 50% design development milestone of our project. So we are, as we get further along, we want to get more and more defined, definitive answers. And so one of the main goals, today would be hopefully to get a lot closer to which items, energy and performing items, will be part of that bundle that's accepted. And one of those at the very end is also the cost to potentially go for LEED certification as well, which previously had not been a goal of this project or committee, but because of the funding that seems to still be available, it was worked into the cost matrix. So that'll be something in particular we would like thoughts or feedback on. So with that, some of the files that I have in the background, and I'll show you the first one, not that I'm going to go into a lot of detail here, but I do have various slides that have been presented in the last month and a half that support some of the documentation in the cost matrix. So there's an updated site plan that shows the reduced public parking and some of the other parameters in case you need a visual. When we talk about expansion of the building and some of the roof areas, if you look at this plan, this is an older one when we had the LL, which was the lower level parking garage roof, and then there was a proposal to do an expansion. Well, both of those rectangles have now been approved. So that represents about 4,200 square feet of new space that allows for new, roofing material, new PVs, all of that. So building, since we last met as a group, has grown now officially to the north. And so with that comes new square footage and new power potential for the PV arrays, which have all been documented in the latest and greatest memo document. So if there's any questions, not that we'll get too deep on any of this, but we do have some preliminary solar arrays on the different parts of the roof, if anyone wants to see that. And a lot of the content here has been collected over the last month and a half. So I will admit right from the beginning, it's not, every single image you see is not 100% updated yet. So for example, this, exactly, I was just gonna say this artistic rendering was from the last month's presentation before the parking was officially removed from the site. So you're still gonna see public parking, and you're actually still seeing the non-expanded north wing. So this north wing actually grows even further. So I just wanted to show this before we go to the spreadsheet and the other Word documents, that if any of you need any exterior visuals that show close proximity to what different views or vantage points are as they might pertain to solar or site work, I have these at the ready that I could reference and defer back to. So that is one file that we can go back to, and then obviously the file that we've been updating for the last so many months, I have that here as well. And of course, at the end of that file is the cost matrix, which is now, it's always been under the $5 million max, but even tonight's is a little bit lower than the version that was in the RCC agenda package last week for a couple different reasons. So I think what I'll do for the sake of time is I might start with the cost matrix and maybe highlight some of the things that have changed since the last time we met. And that way it's kind of an overview summary to see all of the things that are in green are the items that we as a design team are proposing. And so as we go through this maybe high level summary, you can see, I'll go very high level first, so you can see what are all the green categories that add up to 4.2 million. And then we can then obviously go item by item if you want to get into greater conversation discussion about why some items were selected, why others were not selected, if that makes sense. So with that, the first category has to do with the mechanical system. So again, high level, these items were, I believe, in our last meeting. So obviously accepting the fan coil unit system with geothermal, that was accepted before. And then we did include costs for parts of the building that did allow for mechanical equipment to come inside the building instead of being rooftop. Because as we all thought, if mechanical equipment comes inside the building, not only does it allow for that mechanical equipment to be more protected and maybe have a longer lifespan, but it then frees up the roof to be more for solar panels and not mechanical rooftop unit. So you can see there were 3 different rooms, room 007 in the basement, 032, and room 164 were all rooms that we did count the cost of doing those spaces as a benefit to the performance of the systems and allowing for more energy production from PV. So that all was connected to category 3.3, which is all accepted in green. Just moving on again, high level to the next, on-site renewables. That area, we had locations 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Starting backwards, option 4, you had discussion, if you recall last meeting, about the cost of doing a carport structure and potentially PVs on that. At the November 11th meeting, it was recommended not to pursue location 4 and carport costs. So the only thing we did include was the rooftop stair that would go up to the roof to help maintain the solar panels. The cost of that final roof level we did add for the $112,000. That was related to that item. Moving backwards to location 3, we are proposing to maximize it. So location 3 is actually the Sally port and the top of the canopy. So if I go to this drawing here, location 3 is actually really trying to maximize solar on the Sally port box, which is here, and even on top of the high roof. Now, when you look at the rendering, which is a little bit outdated, we did not show solar in that location 3, which is the Sally port and the main lobby roof. However, when you do go down to the way that most people are going to experience the building, which is eye level, you can see how even where the solar panels at their angle are visible, when you're on a bird's eye view, or even when you're at 18 or 22 feet above the grade, as soon as you get down to grade, along the edges of that site, and as you get closer and closer, any perception of those angled rooftop solar panels do disappear and go away. So I say that because if you are interested in maximizing the amount of solar on all the rooftops, these perspective views do show that if we went ahead and added the solar to the very top of the lobby roof and the Sally port roof, we have a pretty good feeling that you're not really going to notice those because, again, they are set back from the edges 10 feet in all directions. So it's not going to look like, an eyesore or something like that. So just wanted to point that out in case anyone was wondering, should we accept location 3 or not, which is what we have in the spreadsheet right now. Moving to location 2, that is now for the north roof wing and the expanded 4,200 square feet. So location 2 for the $256,000 is the original north wing, and then the north wing expansion for PV panels, which would be another 26 kilowatt, is $102,000. That's the value of the PVs. And then at the recommendation of Paul, he suggested that the cost to do the expanded, the bricks and mortar shell cost to build that additional 4,200 square feet, which allows the framework for that additional solar, he felt was appropriate to add in this sustainable enhancement bundle as well. So that's why you see the $320,000 being included. part of location 2 enhancements, because that is the roof, creating that roof for the solar, is that. And then finally,
Brian?
location 1, yes.
So before you move on, as long as we're talking about this, so that's going to be on the north and the lower level. How much production can we expect out of those, or I guess how much can we expect we will not get because of the shading involved?
Sure. And that, I actually have 2 graphics related to that. So the first graphic, and this is where Marcos, feel free to chime in as well. When you look at the expanded north wing, and this is a in progress study because we're actually still trying to determine where the stair is going to go. We had 2 versions with it, south versus north. If it were north, there were actually some studies that were done, and I have that. I had it pulled up here, but I have it 1 second. It showed exactly that, like where the shadows may be cast throughout the day. You know, if that's going to limit some of the production, then should we avoid that location? So here's I'm just going to share my screen right now. This is one of those examples, if you can see my screen, which was showing that the this is kind of just a study from the program Marcos was using, but this rectangle at the bottom left of your screen, this is where the stair tower is. That comes up another probably 12 feet from the roof of the solar. So in mid to late afternoon, when the sun moves around, it's going to cast a shadow on that part of that northern part of the new expansion. So that's why if we go back to the preliminary layout, you're seeing that area not have solar on it.
But the building itself isn't going to cast a shadow, like this time of year wouldn't cast a shadow over much of the solar there that's on the lower level on the north?
Okay, so now I understand what you're saying. So the there is no longer a lower level. And I'll use this to highlight it. So basically, the lower level garage is now going to have first floor program all on top of it. So this roof, so the roof, instead of stepping down and having solar, 16 feet below, this new north wing actually continues at the exact same elevation as the first floor roof.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, sorry. So the only thing that does pop to cast a shadow is just this one stairwell. It's not, I see what you were originally thinking was the whole roof was going to cast more of a shadow. Because everything, and we'll have new renderings once this is finalized and approved, but the only pop-up to really create a shadow is just that 10 to 12 foot stair tower. Because everything else, I mean, the little pop-up at the front entry is only about 2 to 3 feet of a pop-up, and I'm sure Marcos and the team will keep studying this. I mean, that might cast a tiny shadow, but we'll make sure that the solar panels start, a little bit further north than that little pop-up there. So, okay, so that answers or maybe helps resolve that issue with solar location number 2, and then solar location number 1 really hasn't changed too much. Solar location number 1 is basically the location for what we're calling the south half of the building, which is this whole area here. And that's that location. So that wraps up section 3.4 with all of the ones that were accepted in green. And then we move into section 3.5, which is trying to optimize exterior envelope. This is definitely an area where I'm sure Stacy and others on tonight's call might help me chime in, because we did start this section and part of the study a bit more hopeful that we were going to have more positive energy reduction data from the energy model. If you remember, we wanted to approach 3 parts of the exterior for this sustainable exercise. We wanted to approach the glazing and see how that could be improved. We wanted to approach the walls, and then we wanted to approach the roof. And so each of the categories we had recommendations of how to improve the R values and the performance. And then our engineers and Stacy ran energy models with all of the options for roof improvements, walls improvements, and glazing. And there was only one category in each of the sections that we felt, we felt good about recommending, just from a true ROI value to you all, best value, and not just for the sake of doing it. So again, maybe start.
Hey, Brian.
I'm sorry. Yes.
I got a quick question from Diane Streck. She's out sick today, but she did send me an email. So she has a question regarding the ROI. She says, I continually strongly support expenditures that result in energy reduction. I'm assuming this facility is being built to last at least 50 years. When the architects state that enhancement has a high ROI, over what period are they calculating it?
Sure, good question. So, some of these, and I'll use this is one of the couple different summary charts that our engineers performed. And again, Stacy or others, feel free to chime in. But ROIs that, unfortunately, the data that has been showing for your building, if it exceeds the 50 years, 50 to 100 years, we feel that that's probably not a good investment. So, these options, and I won't go into all the details, but options, 1, 2, and 3, those all had to do with options. 1 were glazing, option 2 were wall improvements, and option 3 were roof improvement. You can see the cost savings per year are very, very minimal. In fact, option 3, which has to do with the roof insulation improvements, actually had, instead of saving cost, the cost is going up because of more energy need. So the one that's...
I was going to ask about that. How is it possible that adding more insulation causes the building to consume more energy rather than less? How does additional insulation increase demand?
Yes. Stacy, you might be able to explain it better than I. Did you want to take a stab at that?
Sure. You get to a point where you add more insulation. These buildings have quite a bit of internal heat gains. So lighting, equipment, the people heat loads that are given off. So even we find that as you add insulation to the roof in the shoulder months, so in the spring and fall, we're using more cooling energy because the that internal heat gain gets trapped in the building.
So it's almost too insulated that it can't escape more easily. So it's getting trapped, creating higher temperature and making the system work harder than a less insulated roof. So that's what the energy modeling said specifically for the roof. And then for a lot of our wall and glazing options, it can show minor nominal improvements. But, when you look at the data and it says that, the electricity cost per year using per current unit, utility rate is going to be $68,000, for the whole year. For example, triple pane glass or the improved wall insulations, which are 2A, B, and C, those are having such little cost savings per year. Then you look at the overall cost, obviously, for a year to for the building, and it just doesn't make sense. So it was that modeling that obviously led us, if I go back to the chart to come to the recommendation you all, I go back here, that where are we here? Section, sorry, wrong one. We go one more page. Yeah. So so for example, starting with glazing, we did do, triple glazing or even laminated glazing is going to help with acoustical performance, and it does have, some benefits, especially if you add the low E coating and the argon, gas and all of that. It's going to help. But being that, we were looking at for option 1A and 1B. 1B was if you took every single window in the building and tried to improve it from, a typical 1-inch insulated glazing unit, which is 2 panes of glass, to a triple. It's over a $40 square foot premium. And so that was going to be, $134,000 premium, that limited gain. However, option 1A, we are recommending because as the north wing grows, which means you're going to have more, if I go back to this again, you can see where the generator is. And the generator, has to be tested on a frequent basis. Well, originally, the generator location was just barely touching the corner of the building. But now, if I draw my little arrow here, if I can do that on the blue beam, the building is basically going to grow at the first level a good 60 feet to the north. So you're going to have probably at least 5 to 8 more windows that are literally going to be just hovering above where the generator is. So we're then, because of the improved acoustical performance, and it's not obviously as costly, we are recommending that there's about 500 square feet of windows that are near the generator on the east and north that we would recommend focusing on some better performing glazing that might be in the $20,000 premium for that location of the building. So in category 1 of improved envelope, I think related to glazing, we just felt that just that noise improvement was probably the best of our suggestions. And then just to summarize the next category, which is the walls, 2A, 2B, and 2C were all different degrees of either spray foam or added 1 or 2 inches of rigid insulation. And again, even though on paper it kept getting the R value higher and higher, it just had such minimal energy savings per year that didn't seem to be worth it for the cost of this. And then finally, the one that the team did agree is the thermal mass wall. So the concrete wall, which is the cast in place foundation wall in the carved out sort of walkout basement where our parking garage is and mechanical. It was thought that, going from adding the thermal mass wall with 3 inches of rigid insulation would improve another 5 points for the R value. So you'd get up to an R16 instead of the R11. And so that one, and I don't remember, Stacy, we'll have to follow up if there was any sort of, I don't know if the data energy model or analysis data was in the chart that I've included in our latest memo. If it wasn't, we can talk more about it. But again, in the category of wall improvement, I think of the 4 that were suggested, the thermal mass wall seemed to be the one to maybe focus on if there wanted to be one of any of those. And then finally, in that category, in terms of roof, Stacy already explained the reason for the added energy use because of the heat build up underneath the roof. However, because there is solar on there and the durability of the membrane roof, we thought having a more durable, longer warranty and a thicker membrane from a 60 mil to 72 mil and an extra 5 years, that higher performing roof membrane would be definitely warranted or a good value. So in those categories related to roof improvements, we did recommend 3C, which is just under $100,000 for that. Just continuing here, just to finish up the whole summary.
Is there
the next category?
A question. Does that extended roof warranty roughly match the life of the rooftop solar, so that if there are roof improvements, solar would get redone at a similar time frame as any roof, or how does the roof and the solar maintenance go together?
Sure. I know Marcos, you're on the call, so I don't know if you want to start the answer to that in terms of the solar panel product that's our basis of design and potential warranties for that.
Yeah. Usually when we see solars, there's usually like an ROI of like 10 years or so. So there's a typical warranty for like a standard solar system of 10 years. Usually, if we go beyond that, there's an additional cost for extended warranty, which we can include. But that's just typically what I've seen in just standard installations.
So based on that, it sounds like a solar, the cycle of solar replacement might be half that of the roof. And so I'm wondering if the timing could be coordinated where, every 2 solar cycles, you're maybe replacing the roof, every other time it's a solar and roof replacement.
Correct.
Okay.
And what is the warranty lifespan of the solar?
We've typically seen around 10 years for a typical solar system, like a standard warranty from the manufacturer. But they do have extended warranties.
Yeah, so that's the warranty. I would expect most rooftop solar to last upwards of 20 years, though.
Correct. And they range anywhere from 10 to 25. But I mean, if we're strictly talking about warranty, it's typically 10 years.
Okay. There's no other questions right now. What we've covered so far, I just have a couple more sections to summarize, and then we can go even deeper.
What's the color of the roof?
White.
I don't know if the exact color has been specified, but we are definitely looking at a lighter roof color.
So have we evaluated bifacial solar panels then for any gain of the reflection from the roof?
Marcos, in your preliminary solar studies or product,
No, I haven't taken that into account. I mean, the roof is pretty flat, but I'll have to look into it a little further. I'm not certain on how much reflection off the roof we can actually contribute to our total generated kW watt hours. So I'll have to take a look into that.
If it's a white roof, I think with the O'Brien solar field, we were getting like 10 to 15%. Is that right? Does that sound familiar? Off the reflection on the back side of the panel.
Yeah, that could have been what they said. It was substantial. It was a significant number.
Yeah.
And that's just the reflection from the panels behind?
It's it's I think sometimes from like a snow situation, like,
Okay.
I'm
just thinking if they're, if they tilt from east to west, and so when
there's probably some of that too, but like, I think, ideal when there's like snow cover. So that's why I think,
Yeah, there's, I'm gonna say significant, but there's substantial gain from reflections, especially with snow and white roofs. So if your system is, say, 22% of the energy resources being recovered, you might boost it to 24%. So it's in those percentages, but it is something.
Yeah.
Especially in the winter when you get that reflection.
Yeah.
I think it's just worth considering.
Yeah. The amount of snow cover that we actually have is pretty limited. So like, it's where I thought it was a good question to ask about the roof color. So it's white, that could help that happen year round instead of our 30 or so days of snow cover, which is about what it is now.
So these solar panels will be fixed, not movable?
Correct. Our calculations and our pricing were based off of a fixed mounted rack system on the roof.
And that's what all the other buildings are, right? We don't have any movement on the roofs, right?
I don't believe so.
No.
Yeah. Generally, we see like access tracking and like floor mounted systems or like huge arrays. Usually with roof systems, it just gets a little pricier, and like all the additional structural infrastructure needed to be attached to the roof, or just like the rotating mechanisms and stuff. So.
Okay. Yeah. So any other envelope-related questions that we've just talked about? Roof, walls, glazing.
Is the exterior structure going to be brick or rock?
Yes, the exterior structure is all masonry.
Okay.
For the most part, there is a little bit of metal panel accent, but I think over 90% of it is as I just flip around the building here is masonry. You can see the view across from the library, except for the glass and some of the metal accent. It's all masonry. As you go around, to the back side, when you go down to the lower level where you have the garage, it's all masonry, just different colors to help break up the scale. And then a little bit of metal at the top by the roof fascias. So, yeah. Okay.
And one more question: Are any of the
sure.
can any of the windows be opened to allow natural ventilation?
The current design is no, and I'll let Stacy, if you want to give the kind of the typical response to what that means to the mechanical system, if it is operable or not. Did you want to?
Yeah, sorry. With the type of system we have outside air being brought in through a dedicated outdoor air unit, and that has energy recovery in it. And that's ducted to each space individually. And then the cooling and heating is done by a fan coil unit in or near each space. So in order to, if we had operable windows, we'd have to have a method of shutting off the fan coil units that provide the heating and cooling for each space. There are other issues sometimes in the spring and fall when with humidity, maybe the temperatures are good for opening windows, but then the humidity, then you're bringing extra humidity into the building. I mean, there are challenges with the HVAC system to operable windows.
Okay. And do we have any awnings or anything on the exterior to help block the sun in the summer? Or is that strictly done via the low-E coatings on the window?
It's mostly the low-E coatings. I know that was something that was brought up in one of the previous design meetings. Again, there wasn't a tremendous amount of realized savings. We do have a feature here which you can kind of see. We have these extended kind of window bays. Picture like a picture window that has a surround that projects out 12 to 18 inches. So not only is it's mostly decorative, but where we do have a cluster of some of our larger windows, which face, this is the south elevation, and then there's another few of those examples on the east. Those, and there'll probably be some more, those provide a little bit of shading, but that's the extent of it in the design right now. It's just those couple window bay shadow boxes. couple of categories we used to consider, or we were considering, and they were removed, was in the green roof category. When the north wing did step down, and there used to be the thoughts of maybe an outdoor roof terrace for staff, that part of that roof terrace was going to be a green roof. But now that the expansion has been accepted, where you have the full 2 levels of north wing, there's no accessible roof surface for staff to get out onto. So it's one of those options where you have to choose one or the other. You either, choose green roofs or you choose solar. So we've heard direction has typically thus far been pushing towards solar and renewables. So we took that out, that category, and also removed permeable pavers. They were explored initially, but with some of the maintenance issues on past projects and getting the pervious, the openings in the actual blocks themselves sometimes have issues getting blocked and prevent the water flow like they should. Always a strong proponent in having us focus priorities other areas than permeable pavers. And then finally, the category of rain gardens and bioswales. Even though there was a previous meeting that suggested looking at a bunch of smaller little rain gardens and bioswales around the site, once our landscape architects and civil engineer proved that we could not meet 100% filtration, it was still recommended to just focus on primarily one stormwater detention basin and just do some enhancements just around that one basin. That was in the value of about $1,000 for that one.
Hey, Brian.
Yes.
To follow up another comment that Diane had, on page 5 of 14, this is regarding the green roof enhancement.
Mm-hmm.
She says, based on the rest of the report and previous RCC discussions, I think the enhanced scope column should have a no, not a yes for the green roof enhancement. Same thing with the partial green roof enhancement on the same page.
Yes, thank you. Paul had also picked up a couple notes that we had unfortunately missed, so thank you for that. So we did go through that and started to update that. So partial green roof is no, permeable pavers is no, rain gardens and bioswales we've changed to limited. So some of these I literally just made today from your copy that you had last week. So thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, making us make that consistent. Yep. Okay. Now we're down to the last 3 categories, which is 3.7, alternative low emitting vehicles and chargers, charging stations. So suggestion here, as the building has grown bigger now to the north, I think our last meeting, we were only going to total 26 or 27 spots, but now we actually have a garage that has 35 total spaces. And I think that, let me go to this here. This is described a little bit better here. So 3.7 in the narrative part does show the increase. Maybe it was 27 to 35. I think we increased 12. So the long-term goal is to see if all indoor parking spots for the staff or the PD could eventually have charging capabilities. And so that's how we broke it down to option 1, 2, and 3. Option 1 would get you the outside exterior station. So if you wanted some charging capabilities for the exterior staff lot in the back, and if you wanted a couple charging stations for those new street spaces that are off Research Park, and 6 indoor stalls, that would be option 1. Getting option 2 gets you up to 12 indoor stalls. And then if option 3 were accepted, it would go from 12 to 35. So you would get the additional 23. At our last user group meeting with the user groups and Paul, they recommended that because there's pretty much no fleet that are electric vehicles today, they thought it was maybe a little bit of a huge leap to go from 0 all the way up to all 35. So they recommended that if we accepted options 1 and 2 as the initial building, that would be adequate for now. And so options 1 and 2 would get you, 12 indoor charging stations at those spots, and it would give you the outdoor charging for 2 staff areas and then 2 public spaces.
Brian.
And so in the chart, yes.
Yep. So if there's a charger on a given space, is the electrical cabling long enough to charge a car in a neighboring space so that people don't have to shuffle the cars? They could put 3 cars in a row that could all be serviced by the same charger?
So I think I follow you, and I'll give a partial response, and then Marcos, with all of your research of the different EV charging modules. Outside, there's the pedestal chargers, which have, a lot of times there's the dual ports. So to your point, if, and you see these now in Kohl's parking lots and other businesses and stuff, if you put the charger in between 2 spaces, then you should be able to charge 2 vehicles with a 2-port charger. So we do have 2-port. We don't have any 3 ports, but we have 2 ports called out for the 2 exterior locations. On the inside, I know this has been asked a few different times, and this is where, Marcos, you'll have to back me up here. Because we are trying to be economical, instead of buying the entire housing and the body of like a freestanding or wall-mounted product, it seemed to be more cost-effective to just go with a wall outlet. And if we do go with a wall outlet, I think the thinking is that the wall outlet right now is centered in the middle of each stall, as opposed to because instead of having 2 wall outlets that are right at the stripe location. Is that correct, Marcos?
Correct. So in the exterior locations, we were going to use a dual port charging station, which would give capability to charge 2 vehicles or 2 parking stalls. And then in the interior, we're going to kind of replicate the same situation, but we're not necessarily going to provide the actual EV charger. We were just going to provide a 40 amp wall outlet, 2 actually in the middle. So it can kind of simulate a similar situation. The only difference is like within the internal parking garage, they would have to buy their own like adapters for each specific vehicle. So all we would do is essentially just provide a wall outlet, like an enhanced wall outlet to charge their vehicles.
So they would have to bring their own charging cord?
Well, I'm assuming the city would install the chargers, like if you buy a new Ford EV, apparently it comes with the charger.
Right.
You only have to supply the 240 volt, 40 amp outlet, and then you plug the charger in.
Right.
So I'm assuming the city would somehow procure those. And then my question was, is it, do you need to shuffle your cars, or can you charge 1 car and then when it's done, just, charge the neighboring car without having to shuffle the cars around? And I guess that's probably going to be a function of whatever chargers we purchase.
Well, I know most electric EVs come with a level 1 charger. I mean, my wife's did. So she could plug it in on the 240, but it takes forever to charge using a level 1. So I assume that's what these outlets are for people to plug their level 1 charger in.
But these would be level 2, right?
Correct. The basis of design is to use level 2 chargers throughout the space.
So the city would supply the level 2 charging cord then?
I'm assuming so, yeah. I mean, and it might not even be that the city has to purchase them. Like I said, if we've purchased several electric vehicles in recent months, and that when they come from Ford, they give you that charger that you just plug into your 240 volt.
It's a level 2 charger.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. It's like a dryer outlet in your home. It's very similar. It's just an outlet that you would just plug in. So.
So that's the level 2, and as Marco said, there's 2 of them kind of side by side in the middle. So that's still going to be 12 individual outlets, even if they're gained kind of 2 together into 6 groupings. If options 1 and 2 are accepted, that would be 12 of those. Last two items really quickly here. I know we're probably getting short on time, but indoor air quality or environmental quality, lighting controls have been talked about a lot in the last couple months, and it was decided that maybe to go with the middle range, which the current code is following, I believe, ASHRAE 2013, and there was talk about going to ASHRAE 2016 to have some, if you wanted to achieve LEED, that would be that slight enhancement. And then the enhanced package, which is stated in the code, that would be a really big price jump, because that then affects light fixture premium for enhanced controls and gaining and grouping and all that stuff. So with the way we described it to Paul and the user groups in the past, as Marcos and the team has done research, we're recommending the middle category for lighting controls in that section. And then finally, the last category is anticipated fees. There haven't been formal fee proposals, but based on past LEED projects we've done of similar scale projects, whenever a client wants to consider LEED certification, you have the three categories of fees. You have, the architect's fees that are going to help manage the paperwork throughout the project. You're going to have obviously the consultant fees that also are involved in the process from MEP Civil Landscape. And then there is basic and enhanced commissioning. That would be another incurred cost to do for LEED. So the three kind of ranges of cost would add another, 275 plus minus thousand to that could be bundled as part of the enhancement to do LEED certification. And so if you're willing to consider that as part of all the green accepted items that we've talked about so far tonight, that still well under the $5 million max bundle. We're at about 4.3.
This question is for Bill.
Uh-oh.
What's the city's position on LEED certification? I'm hesitant when we go through years of study. We're intentional about sustainability aspects. We think we're putting the best into the building. Do we really need that stamp that we're LEED certified when we know we've been intentional through this process? So I guess what I'm saying is $275,000 worth it to say that we're LEED certified.
I was wondering the same thing. So Brian, when you walked through this list of 3 items on here, you made it seem like LEED certification would be integrated into the entire construction process rather than testing at the end, measuring energy demand at the end and saying, yes, indeed, this is compliant with whatever specific certification we're looking for. Are we missing out on important things if we skip the LEED certification?
Well, I think, and this is where, again, from a mechanical standpoint, Stacy or others, Jason, chime in. But I think some of the prerequisites for LEED, especially when you get into commissioning, are probably valuable to really, fine tuning the performance of your systems. So, projects that don't go for LEED, it's a best practice, but you have plenty of clients that don't do that, commissioning to just really make sure that the units and the systems are performing as they should. So, maybe to your point that you're getting at, there's certain things that LEED projects require that we could almost isolate those or pull them out of the LEED process and say, well, we're not going to go, spend $275,000 because you don't need the certificate. But if you and the client and everyone agrees that there's some value in commissioning, then maybe that's an isolated cost that is, separate from LEED, but it still would really help fine tune the system and make sure that everything's performing, the best and the way it should be.
Yeah,
I would just add to that. I think outside of the commissioning side of that, though, I think to answer the question, we're putting forth the best HVAC system from an energy performance standpoint, irregardless if it's LEED or not, right? It's using, geothermal, we're using energy recovery, we're trying to maximize, you know, making it the most efficient system that it can be on the, on the mechanical side. So from that standpoint, whether you pursue LEED or not, we've already, based on these discussions and, what we understand of your goals, we're already pursuing that. So, to Brian's point though, the commissioning, that is a step that you may want to, look at or pursue.
Brian and Jason, I appreciate your responses on that. I have visited another Wisconsin community's buildings, and they had a situation where they didn't do the commissioning, and they're having issues with the performance of that system. And right now they're thinking like, we wish we would have done more of a commissioning effort on that. So I think if we're investing in getting these really good units in place, making sure that they're functioning properly, not only for the energy savings but for the comfort of the people that are going to be inside the building. So all good thoughts there. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, when you're trying to be real energy efficient and you're kind of pushing the envelope, you're adding some additional controls, you're making it a little more complex, right? So you're kind of pushing that end of it. So it adds some complexity to the systems, which makes it, the commissioning more valuable.
Yeah, and I think the library is LEED certified, but I don't know how much we got that certification at the beginning. I don't know how much we really boasted at this stage of the game, 15 years in on the library.
I wonder if we had like an environmental engineer who had an opinion.
Well, I think if the price was significantly less, we'd maybe be saying, yeah, let's go for it. But certainly that's a significant cost. It's nice to have that plaque, but those are some real dollars there.
If we could get net zero for $275, I'd say let's go for it.
Right. From what I've heard just today regarding the commissioning, it certainly seems like there's a benefit to that. But I guess that's a decision for our committee and council members to see if it's something.
So let me add a layer onto that. Is there some form of energy dashboard that would be public facing? So this should be a pride of the city of Fitchburg, this building. And so other than LEED certified, I always like buildings and facilities that have some form of an energy platform, whether it's a monitor in the entranceway or at least publicly accessible via web page saying this is how much solar energy we've collected, this is how much energy less BTUs we sent because of the geothermal system, and we just continually track it. It's public facing, and in my opinion, energy dashboards are more important than LEED certification, that people see it and can interact with the features that are embedded in a building such as this.
Is it kind of like the things you see on the bicycle paths in Madison, where they talk about the number of bicycles and all these different things?
Yep.
Like the water fountains or bubblers here, how many bottles of water you've saved.
Prior to the failure of several of our solar inverters, you could go onto our city website and they would point you to monitoring for each of the solar installations we've got. And so the library and the 2 fire stations for sure. I don't know whether the city hall PV system was online or not, but I imagine the PV system will have that through whatever manufacturer provides the panels and inverters. In terms of the rest of the building, I don't know what that would take.
Yeah, that's a really good discussion. I mean, you could spend hearing that. It made another project I worked on a few years ago was Illinois' first net zero municipal project, which was the countryside village hall and police. And so they did exactly what you said. I mean, yes, they did go for LEED, but even without LEED, you could do an energy dashboard. You could do it on your website. They did a lobby display where you could, you could go in person and click on the interactive screen, or on their website, just like you all were saying. You can go literally and look at, energy report for any month. And so you click on it and you can see from the solar panels, how much energy was, what were the loads from, interiors, lighting, plug loads. So there's a whole bunch that could be shared with the public in a live way, either digitally online or in person in the lobby. So
yeah, I would say that the building automation system is going to have those capabilities. It's going to be, you as a city working with that provider to set up that data and, how you want, that platform and how you want to present that, whether that's at the actual police station and or on your website. We can certainly work with you to assist that. But because I think you guys work generally with Johnson Controls, correct? I think on all your facilities. So they would certainly have the ability to pull that data and help you use it however you want.
Okay. All right, well, we're at the end of our time period here, so we need to move on to other items. I do appreciate, sharing this information with us, a new design memo, and, listening to our concerns and answering our questions. So I guess what the next step is, there'll be another design coming out, 60, 75% or something like that?
Yes, there is, actually, Jason or Stacy, you may have this guy. We just went through 50%, so I think the next one, I believe, is 100% design development. I can check on the date, but I guess next steps, and I know when Paul gets back and others, but we do need to start, again, you've given some really good feedback, but for example, if you want commissioning but not the rest of LEED, understanding where some things might be taken off or added sooner rather than later is going to help our design team. So,
okay.
But I'll let Paul get back to you. I mean, I don't know your full process, being the first project I'm going through it with you. We were hoping that this might be close to potentially the last RCC meeting or presentation on this, but I guess depending on what level of comfort you have or what big questions you still have out there, we'll have to follow up and see, what is remaining, I guess.
Okay, I think the only question is the certification, right? I mean, are you okay with everything?
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed with Phil couldn't make it tonight. He probably had an opinion on that. We can follow up with him and see,
okay.
and maybe with Tim Volker, Director of Public Works as well, and see what they think.
Okay.
I think Phil would probably have a really strong opinion, so maybe we'll put that in as an action item.
Okay. All right. All right, thank you, Brian, Stacy, Jason, and Marcos.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
And in my personal opinion, is LEED certification means next to nothing.
Yeah.
To me, I'd rather see the data, and
yeah,
I think to some degree, I think it's just greenwashing. I mean, it's good. I mean, it's obviously
if in pursuit of the LEED certification, you do things you weren't otherwise going to do, then it's worth it.
We're doing it anyway.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, so as Chris said, commissioning, make sure the systems are functioning at right levels is great, but I think we're way too intentional in this process to pay $175,000 to pat ourselves on the back and have a plaque.
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion.
One follow-up on the solar monitoring. One at the library for sure. I don't remember about the fire stations, but they actually had a graph of the theoretical maximum output of the solar panels based on the geography and the tilt and everything under full sun, and then you could see where are we. So you could see, okay, it's cloudy out, it's sunny out, that kind of thing. So that was
Public education, and I would encourage a similar system for the geothermal system to be included, because that's kind of out of sight, out of mind. But I can tell you, you're going to have more energy savings from geothermal than you are in the rooftop solar, if my intuition is correct.
Well, and the other thing is, the old adage, you can't manage what you don't measure. And so if you're not conscious of for instance, the production of the solar panels, you might go weeks or months without noticing that, hey, there's a block of panels that's no longer producing. Or why is our geothermal system suddenly, using 3 times as much energy for the pumps or whatever?
Okay. Just one other follow-up thing from Diane's email regarding the return on investment. She says RCC should know the ROI and make its own decision whether it's too high or not.
And just point of clarification, a high ROI means you're getting a high return on investment. When they say, I think what they're talking about is payback period, which is the opposite of ROI.
Yeah, okay.
A low ROI is a bad thing, a high ROI is a good thing.
Right, they were saying, not recommended because of high ROI, I noticed.
Yeah.
In their comments.
Yeah.
Okay.
Long payback period is what they meant to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so we're like 15 minutes behind. What do we want to do in terms of timing?
We'll catch up.
Okay,
moving on to agenda item 4B, ordinance 2024-0-37, creating outdoor lighting regulations by creating chapter 28 of the Fitchburg General Code of Ordinance. Ben, you want to give us an update on that?
Yeah, so I can share a couple things. So this has gone now to Board of Public Works and Plan Commission. Both.
How'd that go?
Yeah, so it's been gotten good feedback. I guess I'll mention both commissions chose to postpone their vote. So this will
Why
be.
is that? Why did the Board of Public Works?
I was just going to ask you for clarification on why. What was written into the referral sheet made it seem like the Plan Commission didn't think it was going far enough, and the Board of Public Works thought it was going too far.
Yeah, so it's kind of, can't be easy, but basically, yes, we've kind of gotten both sides of this should be way more expansive, and then, maybe more so the feeling of Board of Public Works was, do we even need this at all?
Well, and I should say it was mixed on the Board of Public Works. So there were at least 2 board members who didn't see a need for it, and one said, advancing technology will take care of this by itself, and it was all kind of hand wavy. I'm not sure. Technology is you put a shade over the top of the light, right? But one board member said he wasn't comfortable with it yet because he thought there should be some verbiage in there on making lights dimmable. So if somebody complains, they have the option of turning the intensity down, as well as having a clause specifically allowing a variance for public safety, and then also there wasn't anything in here regarding outdoor advertising.
Yeah, that's very well summarized. So with that, it will be going both back to Board of Public Works and Plan Commission in January. Also, it was originally meant to go back to Council in January. Now that will be February 11th. So that will be the day after our February RCC meeting. So with that in mind, there isn't, if the group feels that we want to postpone as well to get a chance to hear what ends up happening in the Board of Public Works, Plan Commission, and then also CETA will be seeing this. So the economic development, that it hasn't gone to them yet, that'll be coming up here. So
at the February 11th meeting, you would be voting on whether to approve or disapprove the resolution?
Yes.
Yep, unless it gets pushed back again.
So I guess, can you tell us, I think I had asked you at the Public Works meeting and I wasn't sure, how much more change might we expect between now and the end of the month?
Yeah, so I think a couple of the items that were brought up are things that, of course, we're looking into all of them, but a couple that I think are more likely to change is looking into the dimmability, looking into
when you say dimming the lights, like which lights are?
I think it was primarily talking like parking lots, right?
Yeah.
Like in a parking lot out here, dimming them at a certain time period, or?
Yeah, kind of like a
parking lots at businesses.
Okay.
Yeah. There was also some talk about, not really having language in here for special event lighting. So that's something I'll be discussing, that we may tie that into, I think it's called a festival permit that the city has now. So we may try to just tie that in with that. I think the other thing that was brought up was some clarification on the penalties. So right now it just says, no less than $100, no more than $500. So we'll just put in kind of our schedule of penalties that we use for other violations. So typically it'll be something where, the first violation is X dollars, the second violation is, more than X. So that's likely to change as well. I think, that's where it kind of gets difficult with having people that I think are very for including some more requirements for single-family homes, whereas I think if that was included, that may make some other people vote no on it.
And that was a big change since the last time this came before RCC, was that if you look at the list of exemptions, single-family homes have been added to that list, whereas they were not there prior.
Yeah, so and to clarify that,
So that would be in section 2.28.-5.
So so that's number 6 there, lighting for 1 and 2 family dwellings. Okay. We, in talking with kind of our code enforcement staff and planning staff, they're also not necessarily advocating to include 1 and 2 family dwellings in this, in this ordinance. I think for a couple of reasons, concerns about having kind of neighbor to neighbor arguments, just the ability to actually review lighting plans for every single family home kind of being the big one that, I mean, certainly if it was, made a priority, it could be done, but I think it would probably have to come at the expense of something else. And then just...
Well, and so again, I'll just say, if the city has recommendations saying, if you choose from this pool of lighting, you're okay. If you go outside of that pool, you're taking your chances.
Yeah, and that's something that we could discuss. I mean, having kind of a recommended lighting, and I think that was something that Deanna in planning brought up, is having some conditions outlining, maybe recommended lighting, but the feeling was we really wouldn't be able to review all the single family single family lighting or enforce it without giving up something else. So that's kind of a summary of the discussions that I've had with staff, and then what we've heard from the commissions that it's gone to already. I don't have an idea really what might come up from the Economic Development Commission. I'm sure there'll be some comments that we get from there as well. But again, with kind of having these two groups at opposing ends, you know, certainly there'll have to be some kind of a compromise here. But, you know, certainly if maybe all the things we originally had in here and we're kind of hoping for, you know, aren't able to get approved at this point, I think even just having the ordinance established makes it easier to update. I think that's one of the other things, is that this is a brand new ordinance for the city, so it's, you know, it's not just a minor change or changing some language. It's, you know, I think it's a lot for folks to think about and consider the, you know, the impacts to both residents as well as, you know, staff impacts.
I guess what's disheartening is that all the communities around us are doing it. You know, why are we gonna be so, you know, it's just kind of frustrating to the point. You know, Madison does it, Verona does it, Shorewood Hills does it. You know, other communities in the area, they have their dark sky ordinance or lighting ordinance, but for some reason, to me, it just seems like it's a struggle.
Yeah, I would kind of say, you know, this language in front of us is kind of in the middle between some of the other.
So too, what I've seen of the other ones, yeah.
Right, Middleton's being kind of probably the highest end, maybe Shorewood up there, Madison. This is somewhat close to Madison's, slightly simplified. And then you've got, you know, Monona, Verona, Sun Prairie that are maybe a little bit less, and they just kind of talk about the light trespass and requiring the full cutoff fixtures.
I mean, to me, it's just another thing that helps Fitchburg be a green community. You know, we care about our environment, we care about the night sky, you know, we care about other things too, but we try to protect those, but, you know, to me, it's just a no-brainer.
It's currently 7:45. This is when we were officially supposed to be on to our next item, but we're only 10 minutes into this, and it was dedicated to have 25. So make of that what you will.
Okay. So next steps, I guess, or
so we can talk if there's any you know, changes that you would like to see made. We could still do that and bring them to the other committees and commissions as you know, recommended amendment to this language. The other option would be to vote on it as is now, or postpone and just wait to see what happens at the other upcoming committee meetings and bring it back to the February 10th meeting. I guess my recommendation would probably be to bring it back to the February 10th meeting, just so we can kind of hear what some of these, how these other things plays out.
Well, are we interested in knowing the other committee and commission feedback, or are we interested in getting updated language in the ordinance? Because I mean, I guess I'm not really in favor of, oh, let's see what the other guys say, because if everybody says that, everybody postpones indefinitely forever.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, what's our expedited track to get it to the finish line? Is it to update the language? You know, or are you thinking that it's more efficient to get CETAs and then incorporate everything? You know, there's different strategies here.
I mean, if we approve it tonight, and then the language changes, would it come before us again in February?
Yes, I believe we could bring it back.
So, I mean, that might be an avenue we want to pursue. I mean, show that we support this. Are there any amendments people want to make?
Well, you saw Diane's comments, right? If you diving for those two.
Yes, also
like my
I think
things.
Kind of advocating for more language in here regarding the or having it be applicable to single family homes.
I'd be in favor of just striking that out of the exemptions so that it does apply to single family homes. there's nothing that says we have to enforce each and every little thing, right? If people know that it's in the ordinances, a large percentage of people are gonna say, all right, well, let's conform to what the ordinance says. If anybody wants to, say, screw that, I'm gonna do my own thing, somebody may or may not complain, and if nobody ever complains, who cares? If somebody does complain, then we've got the ordinance and we can say, look, you're doing it wrong.
Does the city of Madison have it in single-family residences?
I'd have to go back and check that.
I can't remember.
I don't recall off the top of my head here.
I don't even think Balloon does. Well, do we want to take a vote then on, I guess, recommending this?
So we
As it
would
is?
approve it now, and then we would approve amendments to it in February. If we make some adjustments based on what the others do, but at least we have we're in favor of this out there.
So if we approve, the next step would be then for the other committees to provide their input?
Well, I'm hopefully, we'll get input from CETA, but I'm hoping the next time it goes to Board of Public Works and Plan Commission, they'll vote on it one way or another.
And are you planning on making changes between now and then?
I am planning on making a few of the changes, so I think the ones that are probably more kind of benign and not really, like for example, the enforcement penalties, so having that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Less ambiguously.
Well, I'm kind of in favor of just waiting till the next meeting to vote on it. Let's hear the input from the board, the board and the other committees, Planning Commission and CETA. And would you at that time be able to incorporate any comments they have that you could provide a final, quote unquote, another draft ordinance?
Yeah, I think it's kind of so close to the finish line here, and I was hoping that we could get comments from these committees and commissions much earlier than we did. So I feel like this is kind of what in some ways I've been waiting for, is to get this feedback and kind of get more of a be able to gauge, all right, well, how is this thing going to go?
Make these minor adjustments to get it to the finish line, right?
Yeah, what's it going to take to get it through? So I certainly would think that would be a good way to go. If it, hopefully it doesn't just keep getting postponed and postponed. I'm trying to think of how long the tree inventory or the tree ordinance took to get through, because that was another kind of a brand new ordinance, and I think it was a couple rounds through, which is I think that's great. Then people get a chance to voice things, thoughts and concerns. But
I feel like we ought to approve it tonight so that when it does go back before Plan and Board of Public Works and CETA, they'll see that RCC has taken a stance rather than nobody's decided to do anything with this yet.
I mean, I was gonna say, kind of deferring to your judgment, like what you think might be. I mean, best to kind of keep this moving forward.
Right.
I'm open to.
If we postpone it, that's only going to slow it down. It's not going to advance it as fast, I guess we should say, right?
So, I mean, if you think that that's best, I mean, I know you want this to get to the finish line. So if Bill's recommending that this is our best route, that he thinks might get it to the finish line, then I'm okay with a vote tonight.
Okay.
I also respect your decision if you want to postpone it to February.
Well, and again, if it's amended between now and the February meeting, then it should come before us again in February, right?
Right.
I do want to be 100% sure that is the case.
Or you could make that happen.
Yeah, I'm sure we could make that happen. I mean,
so do we need to have a motion then to approve the ordinance?
Yeah. Are there any amendments that we want to make to it?
Well, so you want to add in the range of penalties, right, or fines?
I think that probably will have to come in later because I don't have the specific numbers right in front of me.
Well, anything like substantive rather than in the minutia there, I guess, for me, the single and two family homes, that would be something I'd be interested in removing that exclusion.
So removing 6 then from the exempt, is that what you're talking about? Section 2?
Right, yes.
I would support that.
I'm okay with that.
All right, I'll make that motion that in the list of exempt lighting, we no longer include lighting for 1 and 2 family dwellings.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
Jim, you haven't said anything about it yet. You have any feelings?
I'm fairly neutral on this.
Andy?
I know they're out for committee review, but it seems a little outside our purview as a resource commission.
Okay, so we have a first and second motion on adopting the ordinance 2024-0-37. Is there any discussion? With amendments?
I think
And that amendment is.
we officially need to vote on the amendment and then the main motion as amended.
Okay. So you made a motion on the amendment, right?
I moved to amend and Chris seconded.
Second, discussion?
Call the, yep.
Any discussion?
I don't think I have any.
No discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Okay.
None opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. So the next step then would be to make a motion to approve the ordinance with the new amendment.
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion?
I think actually that motion, I think we had to make that motion before I could move to amend.
Yeah.
So if we didn't do that, let's pretend we did. I don't know.
Well, I mean, we are officially on record.
Yeah, I think we did.
Yeah, okay. So I think now we're just calling the vote on the amended motion.
The amended motion,
The main motion, yeah.
Okay.
And you as chair need to do it.
Yeah, I think.
So, I guess I'm kind of confused. So we're making, there's a motion. Is there?
We're voting on the main motion now as
Okay.
amended. Yeah.
So we're making a motion to adopt ordinance 2024-0-37 with amendment.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
No, that's already on the
I'll
table.
second.
We're just calling the vote now.
Oh, okay. All in favor of approving the ordinance with the amendment?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? None opposed. Ordinance approved.
Okay.
Sorry about that. It's just
Well, yeah, there was a lot going on.
trying to figure that out. All right.
Now we're only 11 minutes behind.
Okay, so let's move on to agenda item 4C, resolution R-223-24, authorizing a 2025-2029 M-SWAP intergovernmental agreement. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, so this is, I'm sure you all heard me talk about MAM swap before, the Madison Area Municipal Stormwater Partnership. So essentially this contract here is for public outreach and education services that MAM swap provides through an education and outreach coordinator position at Dane County Land and Water. So with Fitchburg being an MS4 community, in order to comply with our pollutant discharge permit, the city has certain public outreach and education responsibilities. And the education coordinator with Dane County helps the city and all of the other MAM swap communities meet those permit requirements. So they offer, or they lead or are involved in the Plant Dane free native plant sale effort, which some community members have taken advantage of. They coordinate the Adopt a Storm Drain program, Leaf Free Streets, and then they also will attend certain events to do tabling, They have equipment that they rent out, for an example, a rainfall simulator that we were able to use here at Fitchburg for the student day in government. So we had, a bunch of middle school students come in that we were able to kind of show off this rainfall simulator and talk about, how stormwater runoff and impairments in water bodies are linked. And then they also do some publications of educational materials. They make brochures, flyers, things of that nature. So the city's been participating in this partnership for several years now. And this will just basically lock us in for another 5 years.
Diane had a comment. How and when has Fitchburg used a Dane County employee for info, outreach, and education? Perhaps RCC can take advantage of this resource for an event.
Yeah, certainly. I've used some of the materials that they've provided. They've got some nice documents on kind of geared towards private owners of stormwater best management practices. Everyone pretty much is going to have some sort of a best management practice on stormwater for stormwater on their development. The people responsible for maintenance don't always necessarily know exactly what that all entails. So getting these private owners more familiar with the maintenance requirements, things that they should be looking out for. So that's been a big help. And again, I mentioned being able to use their rainfall simulator. There's quite a few people in the city that have also adopted a storm drain. We're definitely able to kind of team up with them on those initiatives.
Okay.
Just leave it at that.
Any other discussion?
I just one nitpicky thing on the actual resolution where it says the first whereas the city of Fitchburg is obligated to operate an information, education, and outreach program under its municipal separate storm sewer MS4 permit. Should we include the word system in there so we know why it's called MS4?
I guess we could make an amendment. It should have had system in there. You're right about that, that's for sure. It's not an MS3. I don't know if it's needed for this, but if we want to, for clarification purposes, certainly we could amend it to include system following municipal separate storm sewer.
Yeah, the first where they call it an MS4 because page 41 and 48 in the packet. I mean, it's municipal separate storm sewer system, MS4. But then there was one, the word system was left out. So now it looks like M followed by 3 S's, but somehow it's MS4. So if you're uninitiated, you wonder why it's called MS4.
Yeah.
Good catch. Now we already know they're crazy.
What's that?
Well, now we have to just indicate that as part of adopting this resolution.
All right. I'll make a motion to add the word system in there.
Is there a second? All in favor of adding the word system?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? None opposed? Approved. Okay.
So now any other discussion on the main motion?
No other discussion? If not, all in favor of approving ordinance 2024-0-37 with the amendment?
This is R2
2023-24. Oh, excuse me. 224, yeah, excuse me, that's resolution R-223-24. All in favor of approving that resolution? With the amendment? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None opposed? Motion passed. Thank you for catching that. Just reading off here.
We're only 8 minutes behind.
All right, moving on to agenda item 5A, the draft RCC 2024 RCC annual report.
Yeah, so this is fairly similar to what was presented, I believe it was at the October meeting.
November meeting, was it?
I think we had to pull it from November because we had some other stuff. I think it was all the way in October. So of course, some other things that have been updated since October. For example, we've got the actual article titles in here for November and December that were drafted. And then we did also receive some comments from commission members, so those were incorporated in, but there really weren't a whole lot of comments on this since October. So did Diane maybe have a few comments in here related to this?
She said, under energy conservation, RCC provided input on the proposed police facility.
Okay.
So that would have been under on page 2.
We already done that in 2025.
And then she had, Chris and I presented at the neighborhood's annual meeting to explain what RCC is and does, explain the purpose of logo, may, and answer questions.
So that was her neighborhood association, whatever one that is.
And so that would have fallen under what?
My article was talking trash, not trash talk, but.
Yeah, but this sounds cooler.
Trash talk.
Events should be listed, for example, the EV event at the library. Thought that was in here.
I think it is.
It's here, EV 101. Yeah.
That's
Okay, those were her 3 comments. Otherwise, I think, to me, it looks fine, but you covered everything that we've done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when you wrap that up, do you send it off to, where does it get posted? Is it, happen after it gets finalized, or is it just finalized for us to have a record of?
Yeah, it just kind of goes in a folder for record.
One of the things that I think we used to do was we did share that out with the city council, what our, I don't know if that's typical, if people provide those things. Just to know what we worked on for the last year.
I don't think anybody's done that. We typically get, for budget season, we get a report from every department, but I don't know that I've seen any analog for committees and commissions. I think, maybe this annual report should also go up on the city's website under the Green Fitchburg or whatever that section is called.
Sure, and the sustainability, yeah. I'll have to talk with some other folks because it would seem to make sense to provide it to council in some fashion. If
I thought we gave it to council last year, sent it out. Remember, it was something that Gabrielle mentioned?
Yeah, that could be the case.
I think, sometimes, maybe what I'm thinking of is, before we do a committee of the whole meeting, we share it out with them, but, it doesn't make, it doesn't make sense to me that we would only share it like when we do committee of the whole meetings that, otherwise, who knows what we're up to. But that we should be at least doing something with it.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's also the case that the RCC is somewhat unique in having public outreach.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Board of Public Works doesn't do that. Transportation and Transit Commission doesn't do that.
Yeah, certainly we can get it online on the website.
Yeah, I like Bill's suggestion on that.
Yeah, I think that at the
I
very
just don't want to
least.
sit in a folder somewhere, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, what good is it putting it together? Well, there's something for us.
We want to make it worthwhile for your time to put it together.
Well, I appreciate that.
All right, any other discussion on the annual report? If not, let's move on to the next agenda item, which is the 2025 RC calendar of events.
All right, so again, here, this is fairly similar to what was presented previously in October. We did get a few comments back. I think we added some information regarding promoting the drug take-back events. Was one of the main items that we added here. I did want to bring up that I had inadvertently included the BYOB plastic bag reduction event in June. That should be moved to July, so I'll move that to July, but that's plastic-free July, so that was just a mistake on my part there.
Yeah, that's a comment that Kim had. You saw that?
Mm-hmm. So we'll get that moved to July. I did want to mention one other thing here with April with the spring waterway cleanup event. Sean Paff mentioned to me that the Lions Day of Service is Saturday, April 26th. So there may be a benefit. I think that's probably around the weekend we would want to have this anyways. It sounded like they would be willing to kind of take on leading one site with members of the Lions Club. So that might be a good date. That April 26th. I know we had it April 20th last year, and it was not a particularly nice day. But nothing.
Temperatures range from 25 to 80 on that time of year.
April's just no way to predict how the weather's going to be. So I did just want to mention that for everyone's consideration.
Okay, you check Diane's comments on the calendar. She said, in the past, RCC's calendar has been prepared by either the chair or another RCC member, not staff, because the calendar provides direction for RCC in addition to aiding in the agenda preparation, which is the chair's responsibility.
Yeah, so I think.
I send him the phone.
Yeah, all right, let's go in your
Prepared last year.
We kind of tag teamed it, right? I mean, as a group.
So, I mean, I think we kind of tag team it as a group.
Yeah.
Like, I think you have, depending on what the group says is like, we want, and we decide as a group that we want these to be our initiatives, then you can kind of look at like what you think the structure of the meeting should be. Like, when do you want to talk about, dark sky ordinance or, whatever it might be, you can kind of like look at the calendar and try to balance it out, based on what our priorities are for the year. So I think that's probably what Diane's getting at. It was always my main tool for figuring out, like double checking when we're preparing each month's agenda that, we've covered everything. So
I mean, that's
kind of like my guide for the year.
I mean, that's what I use it for. When you put the agenda, I go back and look at the calendar to see what we are we discussed that we would talk about that time period,
Yeah.
so.
So, I mean, from year to year, that doesn't need to be exactly the same every year. Like, we don't need to talk about stormwater in September every year, but, you have the opportunity to look at that and make some adjustments to it and, not just copy, what we had from the previous year. So
And
I guess
we have been doing that.
Yeah,
Remember
yeah,
that?
it seems like you guys have been doing that.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
Well,
I'll just still continue to work with Ben on that, so refine the
Okay.
calendar based on the inputs we received at the meeting, so.
Yep, all right. So, I mean, we did go over a number of ideas that we have for 2025.
Right.
I can just quickly go through the list from the last year. Let's see here. So I had bike tune-ups at McKee Park was an idea. We had talked about reintroducing Green Thursday documentary films event at the Fitchburg Library. So this was something that we did for a while where we were doing them the third Thursday of every month. But, it seemed like people were pretty interested in potentially showing documentaries and having a discussion at the library. So that might be something we bring back. A night bike ride event, event on the dark sky ordinance. I think you mentioned that you might have a potential speaker for that.
Right.
Recycling event,
For the dark sky thing, maybe we can work with Promega to do something at their observatory?
Well, probably the Madison Astronomical Society.
Okay.
John Rummel. So he gave a presentation to us a couple of years ago, or was it a couple of years ago or last year? I can't remember.
I think it was before I was here, might be 3 years ago.
Yeah, on the dark sky ordinance, so, because he was president of the society, so. He sends me emails every now and then, what's the status of it, so I kind of keep him updated. But
sure.
He could still be the speaker. We could still have it at the Fitchburg Observatory.
Yeah,
Or
that'd be nice to do that, yeah.
Potentially, that'd be neat.
Yeah.
What else do we have? We talked about a recycling event, but we thought maybe 2026 on that. And then we had decided our front runner for a 2025 annual event would be to do a food waste or organics event. So this was something that we had planned for April 2020. We all know what happened in March of 2020. And so the food waste annual event never happened. And so circling back to that, I mean, organics is a hot topic in the Madison area. It's one of, the main things that, Dane County is kind of working to figure out right now. So I think, it would be a good timing to make that our annual event. As far as the timing of it, that's yet to be determined, but, we did have several ideas on that related to composting. We've talked about, we've also had Sustained Dane in here. These are all related to the food waste event. We've talked about having them at our farmers market. So, we never got, anywhere with that last year. So I think, potentially trying to reach out to the people that are in charge of the farmers market again and seeing if they're open to doing that. That could be a possibility. The only other ideas that we did mention, these were some other outreach opportunities, more on leaf-free streets, more on recycling properly. So maybe not an event, but showing or sharing on some of our social media the short videos that Pelletary has. We talked about prescription drugs and MedDrop in April. So I think Diane's already planning on an article in March for that. And then salt-wise as we get later into 2025. So October, November, getting people prepped for being wise about salt use when we get into the winter months.
Does the RCC want to do something for the week without driving? Interestingly enough, I was just re-listening to Walkable City by Jeff Speck, and one of the statements he made in there was that if you change out all the incandescent light bulbs in your house with LEDs, you'll save as much carbon dioxide annually as you would going a week without your car.
Oh, wow. Even if you have an EV?
Well, maybe 2 or 3 weeks.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right. I'll add that to the list.
So the calendars, we see it now, I mean, they're I mean, Diane has a couple other things here, which I'll forward to you, so you can see her comments. You know, in January, we're supposed to, which is this now, we're supposed to pick the date for the waterway cleanup. So, have we tentatively identified that?
If there aren't any concerns with April 26th, that's the date I would put forward.
April 26th?
Yeah.
Coincide with the Lions Day of Service, I like that.
Coincide with what?
Yeah, he mentioned the Lions Club Day of Service.
Okay, yeah, okay.
I don't think there's,
no religious holiday.
Right, that's right, yep, that's what I was thinking. I don't think there's anything on the 26th.
Yeah, I guess.
Earth Week is the 20th.
Yep. Well, the issue with the 26th is that we could have more growth by that point. You know, so like.
Yeah, what?
We can have more growth. You know, like.
Oh yeah.
Make it harder to collect garbage.
Could be harder to collect garbage at that point. So generally, we've shot for the first half of April on that. But I don't. Have we set the recycling event?
I will have to check in with Phil on that.
Okay. So I guess.
Yeah, let me verify that. I should have that.
So one of the things that we have in this document, the calendar of events, is RCC's focus for 2025. And, you know, those kind of, I don't know that we've talked about that in any of the meetings, but, you know, right now we only have two bullets on there that are, you know, bullet one is continue outreach to reduce the use of plastic bags and continue education efforts to reduce ice melt usage. So, you know, I know that there's more things that we're focused on, you know, than just those two things.
Right.
So, you know, should that bullet list be a little bit bigger? So, I mean, this could be an opportunity as, you know, for commissioners to voice what do you think?
Well, Diane said, you know, while I agree with the idea about reduced ice melt usage, we really didn't do much, if anything, about ice melt reduction after January 2024.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to me, you know, like one of our focus areas, since, you know, it seems like we're leaning towards the food waste and organics would be, and, you know, knowing that that's a priority in our county, that, you know, organics, you know, evaluation with our waste system and organics waste reduction or food waste reduction would be a focal point for 2025.
We do have the shred date for spring, that's April 12th.
So that's
the electronics drop-off date?
That's the 12th.
April 12th.
So that's shred and electronics. Madison West just did an electronics recycling event this last weekend.
I saw that.
Went to it.
Was that the wood?
So they do they do free. I don't know how they do it, but they, you know, I dropped off a TV and it was free.
Was it through the city of Madison? Because I saw there was one of the high schools there, one of their green clubs.
Yeah, it was the Madison West Green Club.
Oh, it was. Okay, very cool. Very cool. Do you know who their provider was?
I don't, but I did talk to the advisor and plan to follow up with him. But they're pretty darn excited when I showed up because I put them over the top for what they collected last year.
Well, very nice.
Not as busy as ours, you know, but like, you know, I think they're out there for 6 hours on Sunday. So I just don't know how much it's really marketed. I mean, my son wasn't going to Madison West, I wouldn't have known about it.
Sure, yeah, probably a lot of parents.
Is there an interest, I guess, by the commissioners of having a focus on improving native vegetation or habitat in areas that are being developed?
You know, like we have a lot of developments being proposed in the area, it's ongoing, making sure that those areas, you know, incorporate a certain amount of native prairie or native type habitat in those, at those sites.
We do.
I don't know if that's a mandatory type thing or something.
I mean, it is, it's definitely something that's, you know, talked about, I believe, in the sustainability plan.
And we also do have contracts with several vegetation management firms that come out and like put out native plants at our sites, and they'll maintain them for like 3 years at a crack.
Is that on city property though?
Yes.
It is, but you're thinking more like private sites.
Private property and
maybe
commercial property.
some type of incentive.
You know, like
or,
all the developments going on off of Lacey and the proposed development down on Seminole and, you know, that sport complex and things like that, so. Are we doing I don't think there's anything in the ordinance that says they have to plant X amount of acreage for certain native plants, do they? I mean, they can put down the lawn grass or manicured grass in those areas.
I think as long as they comply with the stormwater requirements.
yeah, so you know, one thing that maybe we could talk about to incentivize native planting is potentially a stormwater utility credit. So right now, the utility does offer credits for rain gardens and rain barrels, but you know, I think perhaps having some sort of a credit for X number of square feet of native planting, you get, you know, a certain dollar amount for.
So incorporate that into the stormwater credit?
I think that sounds feasible to me. It sounds, you know, like a reasonable thing to provide.
Because then you're also in the realm of, you know, increased native planting and reduced stormwater runoff.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
And then that gives us a chance to promote something that we really haven't promoted.
Yeah, I guess that's maybe just a more general question. Do we give people guidance on their stormwater management, aside from you need to keep all your rainwater on your own dang site and you figure out how?
Yeah, so when we're reviewing the plans for these private sites, you know, the main thing, of course, is it complying with the state statute, local and county ordinance? That's, you know, number one. You know, we could say, hey, did you think about, you know, doing something different or incorporating this or that? And certainly, you know, those are comments that we can make, but you know, if they're complying with the necessary regulations, then we don't really have the authority to dictate certain things, you know. Hey, this area should be planted native versus turf grass, you know, that's kind of outside of the scope of our authority.
Are there any rules on the size of their, I guess are there any rules at all on like the size of their retention or detention ponds, and can they be made smaller if they put the right kind of trees in there that transpire? And
yeah, so you know, it also kind of depends on if it is a stormwater management BMP that is part of a plat that will be dedicated to the public. So if it's, you know, for example, Hartung, that development, there's 2 wet ponds and 2 infiltration basins. Those are going to be, you know, they're dedicated to the public. The city's going to be responsible for maintenance. So when we have cases like that, yes, we can say, hey, this needs to be this way. Essentially, we say you have to follow the Wisconsin DNR's technical standards for any kind of a publicly owned stormwater facility. But, you know, as far as, you know, private site, no, I mean, there's standards that people will, you know, adhere to as far as kind of the geometry of basins, but, you know, there's not necessarily.
So, get a little bit beyond the calendar and deep into the weeds here. We're running a little late, and they said it was gonna be, so, sorry, can we wrap this up?
Yeah, I mean, I I think you got a couple more ideas
Yeah.
there on like what the focus for 2025 is, so.
Yeah. So let me take a cut at this, Ben, based upon the conversations tonight, and I'll send it back over to you. Perfect. Look at and get your thoughts and input. And we could get another draft out to send to everyone. Okay. Moving on to item number 6 on the agenda, council update.
I guess I'll just kind of mention all the developments you've been talking about. There's a fair number in the city, so the 4th addition to Terra Vesta, I guess I'm just going from east to west in the city here. 4th edition Terra Vesta was recently approved, so that'll be a mix. It's Smart Code Transect 4, which is a mix of single and duplex housing, townhouses, small apartments, scattered commercial. So I guess we'll have to see what actually shows up there. Uptown Fitchburg, there's going to be another, I forget how many, it'll be a multifamily building going out there to join like the Falcon and the Raven and stuff, where the Rusty Bee is out there. Hartung Brothers is ongoing. Inspiration at Swan Creek, so there's that one block in Swan Creek that hadn't been developed yet. There's 57 homes, single-family homes, small lot, single-family homes going in there. That's actually down from 60 initially. I think around the corners they needed some extra right-of-way space or something.
What's the price range of those homes anticipated to be?
Too high. I'm not sure.
The road's been paved in there now, so I don't know what I probably have seen that at some point. I know there's been some activity about that development in our Swan Creek Facebook page and discussion about it.
There's additional activity in Highfield Reserve down south of Nobel Drive there. I guess there's a somewhat controversial one amongst the natives here in the kind of between Seminole Highway and the Badger State Trail, just north of Lacey Road. There's that triangular plot of land that's got the rundown barn on it right now. That'll have 4 or 5 buildings, a total of 377 apartments, plus a separate a pickleball facility there, pay-to-play pickleball. And then out in Jamestown Quarry, we've got that multifamily. I think that's 250-ish units. That's a Texas donut, so you drive up a spiral and you can park on whatever floor you live on. And then the next phase of that development along McKee Road. Council approved 4 drive-through businesses, so there'll be a McDonald's, a Chick-fil-A, a bank, and a car wash.
Where's that going?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Where's that going?
Just north of McKee and west of Fitch-Rona Road, the main intersection where you go in to hit Target, Aldi, Hy-Vee, et cetera.
That's where Meyer was going to go in at.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because Meyer on top of the Hy-Vee or the Super Target?
I mean, that was proposed at one point. They withdrew their permit or something.
And that's it for my update.
All right. Moving on to agenda item 7, staff and commissioners update, solid waste. Ben?
Yeah, so we sent some letters out to residents wanting some recycling changes for 2025. Also worked with FACTv on getting a little informational video put together. And we've continued collection of holiday lights and plastic film at City Hall. So I was also part of Lions Club initiative, and just an update with that. They're at I think about 700 pounds out of their 1,000 needed to get their commemorative bench. So they're right on their way there.
Nice.
It's kind of some highlights for solid waste.
stormwater. We got our TMDL report basically finalized here, still looking to get some review comments back from DNR, but feeling very good with where that's at. We'll be presenting a little summary at the Committee of Whole meeting on January 22nd.
Diane has a comment on that. So Ben, update notes that he's working on a Committee of Whole presentation. If it's RCC's COW Committee of Whole presentation, historically it's been prepared by RCC members. Since RC members, not staff, will be doing the presentation. Staff assisted with the slide preparation. Perhaps one of you has given Ben some direction on the slides to prepare. If not, I think we should let Ben off the hook and have RCC member take the lead.
Well, that sounds great, but no, I think this one's really kind of specific to this one project more so than maybe like a general RCC overview. So right. I'll be presenting it and putting on.
I'll be there.
Excellent.
So, I mean, if you want me to do an introductory slide, like the kickoff slide, I can do that.
Okay. Well, great. Yeah,
you can wear your TMDL t-shirt.
Yeah. There you go. All right.
And that's what date? That's
January 22nd. I can email you some info on that. We also just took delivery of some calibration equipment for our plow trucks. Just tried it out today. Basically makes it used to take 2 people 30 minutes to calibrate a salt truck. Now with this, we can calibrate a salt truck with 1 person in about 5 minutes. So that's been that'll be a great time saver. We're beginning the procurement process for the Yarmouth Greenway Stabilization Project and Lacey Seminole Regional Infiltration Project. So at this point, just kind of talking with some consultants on getting the scope together. You can anticipate to see those contracts come through at a future RCC meeting. Did continue to advance the Goose Lake Fitch Run Road stormwater project.
What's Goose Lake?
So Goose Lake is kind of just a prairie pothole lake west of Fitch Run Road. So there's kind of the Dane County
roundabout there, like Bavarian Market.
Yeah, but
if you head to Verona on 18151 and you look off to the left, it's
Goose Lake.
That's it. Okay. Yeah. Also attended an MMSD commission meeting regarding their project funding. So there's a possibility that the city of Fitchburg could receive some funding to complete a project out there. Also working to secure some stormwater maintenance agreements and as-built information for private BMPs. There's a few we don't have this for. Once we get that, we can include their BMPs into our city stormwater model. Attended some various meetings, and then all the environmental staff in December attended some training on construction site erosion control. I can do the sustainability here. So Phil did have a few bullet points. Staff's meeting this month, we're going to be discussing an implementation approach for the sustainability plan, really kind of figuring out how we're going to put this plan into action. I'm sure we'll be hearing more about that. The bike and pedestrian plan update process has begun. MSA will be the consultant, and they're looking to get this done by May or June. And then Phil will be co-presenting at the Growing Sustainable Communities Conference in April with the sustainability staff from Sun Prairie and Madison. They're going to be going over the Dane County Sustainability Leaders Collaborative, networking partnership group, and just kind of going over some of the success stories from recent years.
On that bicycle pedestrian plan, is there a draft out there to look at?
Bill?
I'm not aware of one yet. Let me just check.
Kind of
Phil did send an email about the bike and ped plan. Let's see what he's got here.
It may just be kicking off. they might not have a draft yet, would be my suspicion.
It says
Yeah, he's got a link to the existing plan, but not a draft.
Oh, you're looking for the existing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, the existing's out there to look at?
Yes,
Okay.
it's been on the website for years, so you should be able to.
Oh, for years?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I probably looked at it a while back then, so I thought there was something new. So it's the update then, okay.
That is it for sustainability.
I've been by Goose Lake 1,000 times, I guess.
Well, and so there's Goose Lake, and then further towards Verona is like the overflow. What is that?
It's a wetland complex. So it was, I believe it was all farmed, and then when the DOT did some interstate improvements, they basically had to do some wetland mitigation. So they kind of dug out those little potholes, graded out the land, and now it's the Dane County wetland area. So Dane County owns the vast majority of the land out there. We're kind of looking at that whole area for this project. I mean, the idea is to attempt to replace some base flow that'll be lost from the MMSD effluent, and replacing that with essentially groundwater, which should also help to alleviate some of the flooding that occurs at Fitchburg Road if we can keep the level of Goose Lake more stable, so we're not getting that tailwater effect, pushing water back out onto the road. Kind of a unique project that I'm sure we'll talk about later this year at some point once there's maybe some exciting updates to share.
Okay. Diane added her email finally. Other items, Ben's letter to residents explaining the changes in refuse and recycling was a good one. The only omission I noticed was explaining the reason for discontinuing unlimited curbside recycling collection. I fielded that question with someone on my street. Has Ben received any feedback from residents on the changes?
Yes, I've gotten a few phone calls. Most of them have just been kind of clarifying. A couple individuals were not happy with ending the unlimited recycling program. And overall, there haven't, probably only like a dozen questions on it. And the majority of them have just been kind of asking for clarification.
Yeah, I think, so I shared what the city of Fitchburg had posted on their social media on Swan Creek, and then somebody commented on it, like just another way for, government to get our money or something like that. And so I then responded, this is actually a cost savings for most Fitchburg residents. I didn't see the person come back and say anything more after that.
I guess I'll mention one thing I did hear more than once was, I didn't know that we could even do that.
Yeah, I'm sure, wasn't very much publicized before. There's only probably, under 50 residents that actually use that service.
Yeah.
And every resident was paying for it.
Yeah.
So it made sense to make the change, and I was driven a lot by the hauler because of the safety issues that they had with that.
Okay, great.
Anything else?
8:40. Well, next item is the activities being conducted or monitored by commissioners. One thing I want to point out is the Lake Wabisa Conservation Association finalized the lake management plan for Lake Wabisa that was approved by DNR in late December. So now it's an official document that was prepared by CARPC in conjunction with the LWCA people. And Ben was actively involved in that as being on the steering committee. And there's components in there. It talks about the stormwater management and program in the city of Fitchburg. As what flows in the eastern part of Fitchburg does eventually go through Swan Creek and get into Lake Wabisa. So that was a good thing. It's the first lake management plan that's ever been done for the area, surprisingly, considering all the work that's been done on the Madison Lakes. No one has had a management plan put together. And they're common for lakes all over across the country. So particularly in Wisconsin, there's a lot of lake management plans, but this is a good one. So they'll be working on to hopefully start implement some of the implementation will be the next phase where they start implementing some of the recommendations in the plan. So, Ben, thank you for your help on all that.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know if anyone's gotten a chance to look at the plan other than Ron here, but if you do,
it's really good looking.
Yeah, it's worth a read. It's very, professional looking document, great information in there. So yeah, very happy to see that come together the way it did.
Mayor wanted a copy, so I sent her a copy of it. So if anybody wants a copy of it, I can send you a copy. So I don't know, is that something that we can put on the website?
Send it to the whole commission. I mean, everybody be
Well,
able
yeah,
to.
we maybe put it up on the website.
Yeah, see what happens.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's well done, professionally done, and looks good.
No, it does look good, yeah.
Yeah, very thorough job.
And it's thorough, yeah. I think that's something I haven't heard of before, but makes sense that we should have one in the Madison area. Sometimes it surprises me the things that we don't have that I feel like the Madison area should have already.
Well, you think Lake Mendota is like the most studied lake in the world, and yet there's no lake management plan for it. I mean, there's, Clean Lake Alliance does things, you help protect the lakes and the watershed, but, no formal lake management plan for an individual lake. So.
Yeah, and you think about all the farmland that's running off into it to the north of the lake especially.
Yeah, there was a lot of, Carpsey did a lot of modeling of, farmland, ag runoff, urban runoff and things in there, so. It has a lot of good data in it. Anything else from the commissioners like to share?
I'll just, go ahead, Andrew.
Go ahead, Andy.
I have something real quick, just on articles. I think I submitted yours for January, Chris. And that looks like it was printed. I didn't actually read it yet, but I figured I would submit mine for February, and I think Diane wanted something for March.
Yep, she had the med drop.
Ron,
yep, that's all correct.
So Ron just was in.
Ron had an article last year.
Yeah, I had prepared.
Ron had an article on prepping your garden.
Yeah, so it could come in April.
Should I submit that? Yeah, okay.
That could be an April one.
Do you want me to send it back to you, or?
And things like that.
Okay, so I think Ben was going to do an article in February on why dark sky ordinance in Fitchburg, but I think we'll hold off on that until we get everything.
Sure, yeah,
fast.
that makes sense.
So yours is the floater now.
Okay.
Mine was the floater, but we've used the float, and that was in January. So Andy's will now be the February one. He's already prepared it. It's on how different species deal with freezing.
So that'll be the February one?
That will be February.
Okay.
Diane has one for March, and then you had one like birds previously written, or is it on gardens?
On gardening, yeah.
Okay, gardening.
Yeah.
All right. You have one on birds too, or not?
No, that was last year, I think.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how that got in there,
confused.
but gardening.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think the only way that would get changed is, that may go to May if we decide to have like a food waste event. We want to promote that with an article in April somehow.
Okay.
On organics, possibly. We'll see. I don't know when that'll time out, that event, so I'll try to figure that out before the next meeting just get a date out there for RCC to react to.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Anything else?
The mayor has been going around to most of the committee and commission meetings and asking for, what are like 1 or 2 or 3 big things you want to do in 2025, so she can factor that into the CIP, factor it into next year's budget, whatever. So I don't know if I feel like we do an awful lot of stuff, but nothing huge that would require like a budget amendment or anything.
Well, I mean, there's a possibility if we do organics collection that we might need to help fund that. I mean, it wouldn't be a huge, amendment, and I don't think that that's, but like, we might want to do a pilot at something, like, I think
Yeah.
there are some possibilities there on the organics collection for Fitchburg to help to lead the county with that effort.
Okay.
So I think,
We want to have a
Jim and I
discussion
have, like,
topic
presented
for
that to-
next month on.
Is she gonna join us next month, you think?
I don't know. I mean, she showed up at the TTC meeting last week.
Okay.
So and if she has shown up at the Parks Commission meeting already. So I'm not sure what her plan is, but.
Okay.
I mean, good thing we talked about it tonight, like what some of our focus items are for this year, so.
Yeah.
I mean, we have some
Got a
things
whole
that
calendar.
we have our calendar and, here's what we usually do, these are the things we're focused on, as initiatives this year. And
But a lot of our initiatives don't really cost a lot of money or.
no, I mean, we've been able to do
That's
them with
fine.
outreach and events, so, I mean, the one that might cost a little bit more, that we might start to prepare for is organics,
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah.
so,
Doing a pilot study.
yeah. All right. That's all I've got.
Anything else?
I move to adjourn.
Right. All right, it's 8:50, so the January 13th RCC meeting is adjourned at 8:50.